charcoal versus propane. If we could, if we ever get the ability to make a poll, I would certainly create one and see what we could, what we could do with that. But yeah, so again, just enjoying the day. And again, I want to make sure. Now, do you sometimes? I know we always talk about the veterans on Memorial Day, but is that appropriate to talk about all vets? Because again, that we have Veterans Day, which is in November, and you have Memorial Day. So Memorial Day is typically for those who've actually died in.
I will say, personally, this is a personal opinion. You want to think about those who have passed today. The key Memorial Day kind of has the name in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Everybody has their own opinion about it. I will not thank a veteran on Memorial Day because they're still with us, obviously. Memorial Day are those who has sacrificed the ultimate sacrifice, put their life on, like Mike Murphy, for example. My buddy, Wolfeye, Jason Wolfeye, he was the one who did the ultimate sacrifice. Those who are still survive with us, yeah, they sacrifice. CQ, great example. He became a live target for them, if you remember. Several shots, and he's still kicking.
Mm-hmm.
But he survived. He did ultimate sacrifice too, but not the final sacrifice. The final sacrifice is giving your life up for your country.
Yeah. Now, having said that, though, see, now again, some people, like if you're a real hardliner, some people could be like, look, if it's those who certainly, certainly died in battle, it's almost like, the participation trophy kind of thing, where it's like, because usually every time I people talk about it, it's like, okay, well, for anybody who's serving or actively serving, please stand up, and everybody claps for him and whatnot. But should we be stricter about the honor and the recognition? Like, look, you're going to have your day in November, but not everybody necessarily has to be recognized on Memorial Day. So either maybe if you lost a loved one, if you lost your father or a husband or something like that, yeah, you may want to honor then. Or if you want to even open it up to those who've been injured in active service, like I said, like a CQ, who certainly took a lot and is dealing with the injuries now. Those who've been have permanent injuries, I would say include them in the mix as well. Who really took it. But if you're the secretary in the Veterans Affairs Office or some commissioned officer who's never seen a battle of wartime, maybe it shouldn't be for you. So there's a question that a lot of people talk about participation trophies and whatnot, and becoming soft. Should we be a bit more strict in terms of the observance of Memorial Day and only recognize them and says, I don't care if you're in active service or not. This day is not for you. You'll have your day, but save this day.
I think that's fair. I do think that's fair because obviously I know we're being a little biased because we're not active duty, you know what I'm saying, or veterans.
Well, I'm saying like I don't need the recognition. If I was, because I know my had a sister, she was in the Air Force, but again, she worked on the base and whatnot. Yeah, she was kind of in. She has a record, but she wasn't going to the war zone or battle zone or whatever. So I wouldn't feel the need to honor her on Memorial Day when, like I said, she was not even near the theater of war. So my thing is, I don't mind being very strict with that as someone who hasn't served and certainly not, haven't even enlisted. I think maybe we should be a little stricter with that.
I think it's fair. I think it's fair what you're saying. If there, during like tomorrow, like the real, Memorial Day is tomorrow. People forget it's usually falls on a Monday. When they say, "Oh, please, raise, all active duty or veterans raise." No, this should, or about, if you're active duty, please stand up, but please bow your head for a moment of silence. I'll be cool with that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. See, now Eric there, he's a bit more hardcore, so it's hard. I don't know. This font kind of reminds me of Halloween. What do you think? I'm looking at it's a cool font.
Is it BMU thing or you thing?
I didn't change that. So I'm thinking BMU must came in and changed it. But yeah, I'm thinking this would be appropriate for Halloween. I don't know if it applies here, but I can still read it though. So again, Memorial Day, as harsh as it sounds, does not apply to a loss of limb or if you're still breathing. See, that's a concession I would be willing to make. Again, I'm not saying you have to
I think he's right.
recognize everybody, but if you wanted to have a compromise, okay, if you got a Purple Heart, I can rock with that. If you've had that kind of, you paid your dues, so to speak. But especially those who are, lost limbs, in wheelchair or got major stuff going on, and you got to live with that for the rest of your life. I mean, the ones who passed on, you can almost say they're in a more peaceful place. But for those who have to, still persevere through that stuff, like I said, I would make that concession. But I certainly understand what Memorial Day is, and certainly for those who, those who especially on the battlefield. Now, again, you could certainly be in a war office, and let's say if the office, God forbid, gets bombed or something like that, so you weren't in the war zone. So again, there's levels to that also, I guess. So again, you could be active duty and get hit, without being in the theater. But certainly for those who actually were on the front lines, I could certainly understand that kind of strictness when it comes to it. But what were we about to say,
dude? I know one of my okay. First of all, Eric, somebody's right. He has a great point, because Veterans Day is people who have passed. That's what we have to keep.
No, Memorial Day is for Memorial.
Day. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, second thing I was going to mention was I had a buddy of mine. He was a veteran, but he wasn't combat veteran. He was a veteran. The most he got a little scrapple, like he was a pencil pusher, and shit happened. Things got blown up. The window blew out. He ducked, and he got glass shoved up his ass, literally. So the most he got, he had a little scar in his ass. That's it.
But did he get a Purple Heart?
He got something.
No, he didn't. He got a Purple Heart for that.
He got something for it. I remember.
Oh man, yeah, nah, that yeah.
And so the joke
was they'll be giving out for paper cuts.
Yeah, we always used to joke around. We used to bring him a bottle of lotion and go to him like, "So how's the ass cheek this time?" And he goes, "Fuck you." But what I was going to say is, years ago, I was thinking about almost 10 years now, I went to DC for a vacation during Memorial Weekend, actually, when Obama was in presidency and Trump was trying to get in the first round. And I went to the Arlington, Virginia's cemetery.
Arlington,
yeah, and right there they do the unknown soldier.
Unknown soldier,
yeah. At the time, it wasn't on a Monday specifically. It was, I got there on a Friday, so I was literally every 30 minutes to change guard, because those guys cannot sit down for hours in that heat, and even the cold. And you seeing the ceremony, it's speechless. I seen them 100 times on YouTube. You see it on YouTube, like, oh, what happened if you step out of line? Oh yeah, they're gonna shoot your ass. There's no question about that. Those rifles are loaded. Their firearms are loaded. Those things are ready to shoot. No questions asked, and they're kind of have a kind of job like, I can shoot you and kind of get away with it kind of thing. If you cross that barrier and they tell you back up, you don't. They have the right to shoot and kill.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but obviously they're not going to do it. They're going to warn you. They have security and all that stuff. But if they have to, some kind of protocol broke out there. But anyway, the point I was trying to get, when you witness that same person to change them to guard, it's so, I can't even explain the feeling, bro. It was very emotional. Best I can say it. I've also visited Kennedy's tombstone over there. That was emotional too.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter you like him or not. Nothing. It doesn't matter. He was still a human being. He got killed for some psychotic person. You know what I'm saying?
Well, so they say. We don't know the deal.
Oh God.
Now, I don't think that we're never gonna. When honestly, we're never gonna know. I don't think they're ever gonna read, because legally all those records should have been released a few years ago. And I don't think now, if the current president decides, I thought he might have hinted at maybe releasing those records of the assassination. Yeah, whether or not he'll do it or not, I don't know. But again, there's always been timelines. They kicked that football down the field so many times, and there's so many conspiracy theories about, was the mob involved, was our own government involved, was it the CIA?
I heard a guy named Bennett was involved.
Oh, stop that. That's the last I need. Now that my phone's going to be blowing up. Mr. Bennett, this is the CIA or the
what you don't have to worry about that.
The Secret Service.
We don't have to worry about that. When we go to Fleet Week tomorrow in New York, and you walk in there, MPs go, Mr. Bennett, come with us, please.
Yeah, that's all I need. And they're going to reference the show, and then I'll be, then I won't be.
I wanted that guy explain to your wife. You might not see your husband for a couple months, maybe a couple years,
and she's gonna ask why, and then you're gonna have to explain to her that
Oh, I'm not explaining anything. Actually, it was all his idea.
You open up your big mouth and
when he was younger, he did something very stupid. That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay. Young, I wasn't even born then, so that was 1963.
Well,
don't age me too much. I was born in 69.
Great-grandfather or something like that.
I was see, now you're gonna bring my whole family into it. You're not just gonna bring me into it. You're bringing my whole lineage into it, my kinfolk into it. So no.
But seriously, one day we should take a ride up there and check it out together. I think you appreciate it more than anybody.
Yeah, well, I've been looking to get to DC for a moment because I know I've been looking to go to like the Smithsonian. Like I said, that's definitely on my bucket list to get there. I just haven't had the time.
I've been to Smithsonian. It's like it's overrated. I'll be honest with you. It was very overrated.
I want to say because I know they renovated it quite a few years ago. When we were down there last time we were down there in 2015, 2016 when the African American Museum opened up, and I know it was actually shut down because I know they were doing renovations on it. So certainly I wanted to get there, and certainly they got the Sea Air Space Museum down there. That's also I think part of the Smithsonian that I want to see. I definitely that's especially the ships and everything. I love that, but no one in my family has an interest in that. So yeah, I mean, if you want to tag team and go down there and check out that stuff,
absolutely.
I'm a sucker for jets.
Maybe
I think they got an SR-71 Blackbird down there, or a few of them down there. So yeah. So I want to check out all that stuff. That's my arguably the greatest airplane ever built was the SR-71. And so I'd want to go down there and check that out. But I got a question for you though. What do you think of my top here?
Cool. You remind me of the guy who sings God bless you, America. What is it called? You know what I'm talking about. The song, man. I gotta look it up now. I can't remember the name of the song.
Okay. Well, I'm proud to be an American, I guess.
Thank you. That's the song.
Okay.
You might have him.
I forget his name. I forget his name too. But definitely, certainly, the reason I bring it up is because it's interesting because I got some information some time back, and for a minute there I was a little subconscious. But I mean, obviously, especially when it comes to Memorial Day, 4th of July weekend, you see a lot of people and they will wear clothing that has the American flag on it. And, certainly, it's a good day for patriotism and whatnot. But actually, I found out that there's some laws on the books that this might be, illegal to wear such merchandise. And so I scratched my head. So I looked up a couple resources on it. Now, again, it's not something, no one's going to come and arrest you for it. But there is on the record a U.S. flag code. And amongst those things that they talk about, in fact, let me see if I can share my screen real quick, and this will be like the last sort of icebreaker, and then we can kind of get into the main topic tonight. But I just wanted to kind of share this and talk about it for a minute. So again, information on the U.S. flag code. So again, it's code number 8, respect for the flag, and it says here, no disrespect should be shown to the flag of the United States of America. The flag should not be dipped to any person or thing. Regimental colors, state flags, organizations, institutional flags are to be dipped or a mark of honor. But what I really wanted to go down to, so they have this different thing. So it says here, Part D of the flag code is that the flag should never be used as wearing apparel, bedding, or drapery. It should never be festooned, drawn back, nor folded up or folds, but always allowed to fall free. Now, again, I'm not sure if they're talking about a U.S. flag, like an actual flag, like the flag I got, like when my dad passed, because he was in the service. they give me a flag. They fold up their play tabs, they fold up a flag,
Yeah,
and give me a U.S. flag. Are they talking about
nine guns and everything, right?
taking an existing flag and making it into a apparel, or wearing something that has inspiration, U.S. flag inspiration? Like I've seen bikinis, string bikinis that women wear that have the stars and stripes on the front, and then all that kind of stuff. So again, I'm not sure. As far as with the the gray area here, like I said, I don't think anybody's ever been persecuted for it.
So
But
this is one of those laws. I hear this not multiple times. Not the flag, other laws too. Tobacco, great example. You're not technically, if you bought a pack of tobacco, cigarettes, for example, Pennsylvania, and drove over to your state, New Jersey, you're not supposed to do that. Actually, that's illegal.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to literally just whatever you buy, leave it in your state and buy the product back in that state. Nobody's going to enforce that law. It's retarded law. Let's be honest. Same thing with that. Like, because you're wearing a flag on your shirt, be a proud, bolded, healthy American. See, as I put it bold in there. So you cut that part. It's nothing wrong with that. In my case, tomorrow I usually wear my army shirts. Usually says if you don't like this country, get the fuck out, kind of thing. Or this is my country, I'm proud to be a part of it. Something like that I usually wear because I feel like it's more appropriate for that day. I really don't have any shirts with an American flag on, to be honest with you. I used to have bandanas. Or masks, if you remember when we were during the pandemic.
Right. Yeah, man. I see a lot of people they'll wear, like I said, holiday weekends, July 4th, Memorial Day weekend, and what certain times of the year people get, certainly they put on their either their USA, or they'll wear, like I said, the American flag or whatever. You see the stores selling T-shirts with the American flag. Now, Eric brought up a point about the U.S. flag proper, but again, what does that mean? I mean, so if I went to Walmart and bought a U.S. flag, is that official? Because somebody, and the crazy thing about it, I was in a store that was selling some T-shirts that had all kinds of patriotic stuff on it, and then I looked at the because I wanted to find out what the material was, and then I looked at made in China. So I'm asking myself, it's like, yeah, it's like all this patriotism, but at the end of the day, the Chinese will laugh into the bank because a lot of this merch is made in China. So again, if I went to Walmart or some other store or Amazon and ordered a flag, like what is considered proper? Does the U.S. government have to make it, or is anything look like a flag? It's a certain size standard that needs to be done because they come in different sizes and whatnot. So again, that's So as far as what a proper flag is, I don't even know what that means, or who decides what is a proper U.S. flag. In that thing, I mean, certainly the one that was given to me from my dad dying, certainly I haven't taken it out of the folding. I mean, it's in my closet, and it's just like that. I don't think I would ever unwrap it or hang it up or do anything to it or whatever. I just keep that as is. I know some people get those triangular keeps of frames to put it in. So I'll probably do that. From
my understanding, and this is a CQ / Angry Elf / King Smith question. And if they're watching, please respond to this if you guys know. Once it's folded and handed to you, you do not unfold it. You keep it folded. Everyone I have ever seen people have one. My buddy Wolf, who passed, he was like third or fourth generation military. I can't remember. All his family were military. He had 4 or 5. His dad had 4 or 5 flags up hanging up. Now he obviously has his sons up there too. Then I know a couple of other people I know. Even same thing back in Greece. That flag is never unfolded. Never. So
now, do you see a lot of people wearing, like, are there certain days of the year? Like, I know you have tattoos on you of the Greek flag and whatnot, but people wear Greek flags or Greek flag apparel or things like that? All the time.
I have a couple shirts like that. Yeah. One has.
I know some people have like the soccer shirts and stuff, especially during World Cup. People rock their country's colors.
I don't have a sports team shirts because I was never a big fan of that, like buying those T-shirts, because the only reason is how expensive they are. You think American teachers are go to Greece, my dude? Like you're paying like 4 times the amount. 4 times the amount. And it's insane how expensive jerseys are. Let's say what typical jerseys like what 300-400 here, right around there. I want to say
what a jersey.
Yeah,
I don't know about 300. I mean, so I'd say at minimum, you know, an authentic with the edge letters and whatnot on it, probably 150, 175.
My custom
is low budget. The only that, yeah.
My custom jersey was 150.
Okay.
So you're probably playing about 350 to 450 in Greece. I never wanted to spend the money. You know what I'm saying? I was never. It's too much money to spend.
Right.
Way too much money. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So, do people wear, Greek flags on their shirts? Yeah. Do they have to wear it on their Pacific Day? No, they wear it usually around all year round. I say, go to Queens, bro. You see Greeks walking around like, hey, he's a Greek. I'm like, hey, Malaka. And like, hey.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's certainly some pride that comes with wearing the apparel. But again, this will be a question for me still. It says, and flags emblazoned on apparel is not this as a straight up American flag. But again, what is a straight up American flag? Is that something that
the government probably
is that something a U.S. issued? If we're talking about that, but again, where those made? I mean, are those made by American companies or whatever? Or like I said, any flag that you buy in a retail from Amazon or anyone else, would that count as an official American flag? So I again, from a consumer point of view, I don't know who makes that that call. I would think any flag that is sold commercially, I can't see as necessarily authentic unless you're buying it from an actual government agency. And I would think that flag would be quite expensive if you were going to buy that. But anything from a mainstream retailer, I can't see that being authentic to the same level as, like I said, the flags that are presented at TAPS.
It depends. I'll tell you why it depends. It depends if it's let's say somebody's, they're trying to earn money for a charity event, for example, right? It's going to be pricey, but not as pricey you think. I've been to DC and all this stuff, and I see a lot of soldiers selling stuff off, like coins and stuff like that with American flag and everything on it. It's a really good quality. I'm actually going to grab it in a second when I get a minute. And they're like $20, $30. And they tell me we just need more gear. And, sometimes let's be straight up. When it says, military grade, it doesn't mean it's good as shit. It means it's cheap as fucking shit.
Yeah.
For them to get better stuff is for them to raise their own money sometimes. And that's why, like it's up. You mentioned you were in DC in 2015. Was it 2016?
2015, 16. I forget the exact year, but yeah, we were down there.
The funny thing, I think it's kind of funny actually. Now I look at it, I just looked up when I was in DC because I was curious on my Facebook when I posted them. It was 2016.
Okay.
This time of year, 2016. Imagine we walk by each other like, yo.
I didn't even recognize. It's like, who's this little guy over here, man? But at least I would have said. I would have said this handsome guy because back in then you weren't rocking.
Your limit.
You weren't rocking a beard back then, so you were clean cut. You were cut up. I saw them OG pictures.
I used to do. I'm actually thinking about going back to it for summer. I used to do a skin fade and then a one on top. And I used to just buzz my beard like down to a clean shadow, because back then the laws were a little different about beards. Now everybody has it, so they had to adapt to our laws.
Gotcha.
Beards.
All right, so let's get into the topic again. I want to thank everybody who came tonight. Mariana Constantine, Stephanie McCoy, Cash Rain Mindset. Thank you for coming in tonight as well. Finesse Visions. Appreciate you being here as well. Again, thanks for spending your Sunday with us. But yeah, let's get into this topic a little bit. So, want to know a little bit about the inspiration for this? We're talking about code switching. Right now, again, I know this is something that has been talked about certainly in the African American community. Certainly there have been several conversations certainly on this. It's actually part of our culture, it's part of our history. But from your end, what was the thought process, and which angle were you thinking about when thinking about this particular subject? So why don't you set it up for us before we get into the conversation?
I get annoyed when people say you don't act white, you don't act Greek, you don't act from your culture. I'm looking like, how the fuck do you have the nerve to fucking say that to me? First of all, whoever says that, you have some fucking balls on you, because how do you know how am I supposed to act? That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, you know me for what, 2 years now, 3 years?
Yeah, going on that. Yep.
Let me ask you a question. I never really asked this question, and I do apologize. Anybody out there that I offend, I do apologize ahead of time. This is a warning right now. When somebody asks you, you don't act black.
Mm-hmm.
How are you supposed to act?
Well,
that's the funny part for me.
Well, it's interesting because at different times of my life, I probably handled the situation differently. In you know how I handle it, like in my 20s, because again, and people have said that to me directly in a lot of instances. So one answer has been, you need to get out more, because I never looked at myself as an outlier. You know, for certainly for the guys that I went to school with, for the guys who grew up, you know, around me and whatnot, we all came up through college together and whatnot. We all carried ourselves in a certain way. And so I didn't think that the idea of not acting black was a thing, because again, I thought that's how we all, you know, we were all taught to, you know, speak well. Yes, we used our ebonics. We used our, you know, certainly with each other, but you know, certainly when it came around the general population, there was always a way that we carried ourselves, and it was just natural for us. So the idea of black is like, what? So do you mean black is like, yo, what up, man, and this and that, and broken English, and you know, is that how you are? Is that how you are defining? Is that how you see black people? And then the other thing that I was always conscious of was a lot of people would say that to me is because they didn't see me any longer as a black person. And this happens with a lot of communities. So you meet me for the first time, obviously from looking at me, you may develop a perception in your mind about who I am. Now you get to know me, you get to hear me speak, and then some things start taking off in your mind. Oh, he doesn't sound like he's from the street, or he doesn't. Oh, he's very educated. He's this, he's that. We're very relatable. We can talk about the same things. Slowly but surely, I stopped being black in that person's mind. Now, initially, what I used to think is, well, because of that, then maybe that will change your perception of black people. And what I've often found is that sometimes it does not. What it does is, in your mind, you separate me from black people. So then I've heard comments like, well, why can't other black people act like you? To which I say, one, you need to get out more. Because it doesn't, you know, it doesn't register that your access, what you know, have you gotten your perception of black people from watching television? I mean, where are you getting these stereotypes about? I mean, there's almost 50 million of us in this country. We all come from different backgrounds and whatnot. We're not necessarily all monolithic. Yes, there's certainly things that unite us as a culture and an experience here, certainly for those in the United States, yes. But as far as the acting black or acting white, so that's always been something. At certain points, I took it offensively. At other points, though, as I got more mature, I started to understand it. And that it was more so coming out of ignorance. But yes, I think especially early in my career, every job that I was on, because I was working in major corporations, worked at Intel very early in my career. And you just had people who were there who simply had no exposure. They came from like Minnesota or some other places, and until they were adults, they never really had any interaction with black people. And so they see me, and then they look at black people for watching hip hop videos or rap videos or something like that, and then they see me, Not to say that I'm not tied or connected to that. It is part of my culture as well. But somehow, like, I'm almost like a unicorn. And again, also keep in mind, most of my career, I'm usually the only or one of the few Black people. So again, most of my career has been in corporate America at major companies. And a lot of times I'm like the only Black person in IT or one of the few Black people in IT. And so, so I've at some point in my career, I've always had this on me. Now, again, it's a little bit, I get less of it now because I think some of the culture has changed in that, especially with, the sensitivity. They talk about microaggressions and things of that nature. So people aren't as apt to ask me certain questions like that, like, "Oh, you don't act Black" or whatever. But I got into corporate in the 90s, the early 90s. And so it would always be a conversation, or people would make in a joking manner, talk about watermelon or something like that, or fried chicken. Oh, so one guy said, "Oh, we're having this event. Oh, we're not serving fried chicken at the event." Like, like really? So that's all you think of Black people, is that we eat watermelon and fried chicken? Is that your view of us? So at certain times I've dealt with all of that. Now, again, I never was going to be one. I think you've known me long enough to know I'm not going to be one of those people just going to, "Yo, what you get in someone's face," and I'm not, I don't have that kind of aggression. But I note it, and I note who I can be around and who I can talk to and whatnot. And, sometimes you just see yourself. Now, again, some guys said something and it wasn't well received. And, this has been said in meetings. And then guys say, "Oh, I apologize." And I just took it for what it was. And I kept it moving, because my thing is also, look, I have a job to do. And I think for a lot of Black people, especially in as we start to get into a lot of these corporate spaces, mostly white spaces, we've all in some ways had to deal with some of that stuff. And then, but again, we understood also, we also have an assignment. And so again, we were able to keep our cool most of the time, or at least put it in such a way, or at least our minds say, "Oh, well, that person simply just doesn't know. That person is going off of misinformation or ignorance in terms of who we are."
I agree. So when I meet somebody, let's say you, for example, I never met you through this space. I met you on the street, or we met you at a convention or comic books or whatever we met. You start talking to me. The first thing that comes to my mind, Paul, he's been raised correctly. He was, he's educated. He's actually smart. He's not from the street. I get so annoyed when I hear this word. "I'm from the fucking street." You're an idiot. Simple as that. If you're proud because you're street, and I tell all young men who work under me, you know what makes you really tough? They're looking at, "Yeah, on the street, you're an idiot." What makes you really tough is actually staying off the street, earning your paycheck, and working a hard day's work. That makes you tough.
Mm-hmm.
Not being on the street like a ding dong.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, I usually embarrass them pretty bad, because they feel very stupid.
Well, look, are you talking about illegal? Because I would make a distinction between someone who's been raised in a particular environment that, again, that may adopt some cultural cues from that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that person is involved in some illicit or illegal activity or things that would be necessarily harmful. Again, in the streets, there are codes, there are ways in which you operate and do things. You can still be about your business, because obviously you have to live in that environment. A lot of people don't have control over the environments that they were raised in. And so if so you may have to know some of that stuff, or at least how to navigate. But your thing is, look, I'm like you said, I'm trying to work my way out of this particular situation, or put myself in a better position. And so again, I'm gonna be about my business, whether it be whatever the endeavor is, education, sports, whatever it is, that you're working with, but that doesn't mean that piece is not a part of you, and that some of that may not be essential for your survival. Part of it is, again, when we talk about the show, again, is this about selling out, or is this a survival tool? So again, you might come from that environment. It could have been very well part of helping you to survive that. Because again, if you came off as, again, you're in a situation, you come off acting white or whatever, then again, how's that going to go for you in an environment where most of the people you're around are quote unquote of the street? So again, so there's a code switching there you may need to do, regardless of where you're at. So whether you're in a corporate environment, whether you be in a street environment or any environment that you're in, the idea of being able to speak a certain language in that area, knowing that you have a better and higher goal in mind, could be an essential tool for you making it through that particular area. But yeah, but I certainly would agree. Look, I don't need anybody to romanticize it. And if some of these guys are speaking with a mindset that they're trying to romanticize or glorify that which is, that shouldn't be glorified. If you by the streets, if you talk about violence, by the streets, if you're talking about drugs, by the streets, if you talk about just dysfunctional homes, yeah, none of that stuff has to be glorified. And you should be, certainly not looking to do that. But again, certain aspects of the culture, I'm not going to fault someone for that if that's all they knew, or certainly that's how they grew up, because that's, people
That's
don't decide where they've been born.
Yeah, and I get that, but it's also up to them to break the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
If you continue doing the same thing, for example, you take a lighter, you burn your hand today, it hurts, right? You do it tomorrow, you do it again, it burns again. Do it the third day, fourth day. And then you're 5-6 years later, you're doing the same fucking thing. It's up to you to break the cycle. As simple as that. You can change your lifestyle, but you want that change.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want it, it doesn't. Listen, being someone who partially, I say partially because I only grew up half my youth in New York. You kind of have to learn street smarts really fast. You don't have a choice. Because people come up to you all the time. Hey, you got $20, kid? Hey, can you buy me some beer? Whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If you see in movies, it really does happen sometimes in New York. Let's be honest here. You're not too far from New York. You probably hang down in New York for a little bit at one point or another, right?
Oh, sure.
So you know what I'm talking about. Like when people are like, oh, this is a movie. That doesn't happen. We're like, yeah, it does actually, my man. But my point is trying to get to is if you're safe from the streets, you want to do the street thing. They don't even follow, people who are on the street don't even follow the code of the streets. They say no snitching. They're the first one to fucking rat on your ass.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that one-on-one in prison. I worked with Crip members, Blood members, Luther King members, whatever member you want to think of, I worked with. Those guys are running literally to the war and ratting each other out. We're like, what happened to the code? You don't snitch and rat each other. Yeah, it doesn't go. It doesn't work like that. And fend for yourself. And we're like, oh, but you guys are on different blocks. You got that. One gang block, you got the other gang block, whatever. But you guys are still snitching on you. That makes no sense. Mm-hmm. Your family.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, the only family you have to worry about is yourself when it comes down to that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mentioned before I don't have a family, but you guys who know me, like yourself, CQ, you guys, are more family to me. I know you guys are not gonna rat me out, obviously. You can say, hey, you probably want me, yo, Pete, you're trading very dangerous territory. Just be careful what you're doing. You can be good, But you guys know better than run behind somebody's back. I mean, talking shit. You're talking shit behind people's backs. Mm-hmm. You don't do that. I talk shit behind your fucking face instead. That's me. But it doesn't make sense to me. None of this stuff. Now let's hit the corporate world for a little bit here for a minute. They say, oh, like you said, you as an IT person, you don't really see like African American.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah, I mean, most environments, there might be one or two guys out of an IT department. Generally, it certainly is less than 10% of us. Again, I went to school for computer science. So, and again, there weren't a lot of guys in my major either. And again, I went to a PWI, and so again, I've always been in these environments where, I was either going to be the only one or one of few. And again, and a lot of times for the few of us that were there, again, we would get together, we would go to lunch or whatever. And we would, sometimes we would talk about, again, some of the experiences we had or what people would say to us or whatnot. So again, you kind of had a bit of a support network to, to talk over if you were having a problem. But I think for a lot of us there, we were about the grind. Certainly I want to, I know Black Supremacy 101 is certainly in the conversation tonight. He's been certainly dropping some comments. Want to just highlight one. So again, code switching is merely a way to keep white people comfortable above all their potentially projected stereotypes of a non-Black person, if you want to look at it that way. But again, it's not so much about trying to keep someone comfortable. It's about being about your business. I'm here to be about my business. And so again, I'm not going to certainly have any things that interfere with my ability to do the things that I'm there for. But again, you could look at it, if you want to look at it as a way of out of fear, you could certainly look at it that way. And I'm sure some people do look at it that way. But for a lot of us, when we came out of college, we were all about, look, we're going to, for a lot of us, we were looking certainly to change the outcomes of the backgrounds that we came from. A lot of us was poverty. Now, again, not everybody, just because you're poor doesn't mean street. I grew up poor, very poor, but I didn't grow up street though. But I was around certainly, and I saw enough to see what was going on. And so, for us, we made some decisions that we were going to excel. We had an opportunity to go to college. For a lot of us, we were the first ones to go to college, and we were going to excel in these areas. And so, so again, I think a lot of this has to do with what is your goal and what is your objective. If you're operating off of, well, I got to, they used to kind of say this thing, oh, well, don't upset the man. You got to keep the white person, got to keep him comfortable. If you're operating out of that, then again, I don't think that's a healthy space to be in. But as my man Eric said in the chat, there is something called common sense. I mean, certainly, I don't care if you're on a sports team or any team in any situation where you talk about multiple people. Personalities matter just as much as your ability, and teams do this all the time, especially in sports. Having the right cultural fit is supposed to matter, and creating a culture though where people can certainly be certainly on in an environment. I've worked with every diverse group that you can think of, and again, I think the only thing that's different today is, like I said, I think you're more free to talk about people's backgrounds. Like I heard recently, like asking someone where they're from is called a microaggression. So it's like, oh, are you from India? You're from Pakistan? You're from whatever.
Hit the brakes. Back it up. Say that one more time, please.
Asking someone where so there's a category that, again, if anybody who's worked in corporate America, you've taken classes, sensitivity trainings, or whatever it is. Some of the stuff is mandatory that you have to do every year. Mm-hmm. And so there's a new category that's been defined in recent years called then microaggressions. And so asking a person where they're from could be considered to be a microaggression. So again, I think the environment is such where you don't necessarily point out. Now, a person, if they want to volunteer that's perfectly fine. But as far as you asking probing questions about a person's background or religion or whatever it is, or what they're wearing or whatever, again, a lot of corporate culture is such where, a lot of those things are certainly dissuaded and things that you shouldn't cover. So again, it's a different ball game than certainly it was in the 90s. where
I
again
don't see how that'd be offensive.
a person could be ignorant, but then you had the right to check them if they crossed the line, in which I had to do again several times in my career.
See, I don't understand how asking somebody where they're originally from. I don't see the problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
I do see a problem with it when it is being in a disrespectful manner, like saying, you know, oh, where you from, blah blah blah. Oh, you were X, Y, Z, you know, whatever. I asked a bunch of times, hey, people ask me. It usually comes out, where are you originally from? I'm like, tell my background story, and then as they ask me, I'm curious about you. Ask me, and so on. But the other thing I also realized in corporate world, because I'm a chef, obviously, I started seeing since 2015, a lot of brothers becoming chefs. Very good fucking chefs, bro. Like Terrence, I mentioned him. You know, he's fighting. Like I mentioned you guys last time, he's fighting stage 4 cancer right now. One of the best fucking chefs you can ever meet. His problem was he didn't want to move the corporate ladder. He was happy where he was. Imagine if he moved up the fucking ladder, how good he would have been. But talking to him about when I met him the first time, he was like, you know, it was his I don't want to blow his information out too much. Let's say his name is Nick. All right. Nick goes to him like, were you in the military? He goes, no, sir. I already knew what was going on. I'm sitting back, I'm laughing. Oh, this is gonna be he's gonna embarrass him now. He goes, your father was in the military. No, sir. And he goes, he turns around and he goes, I never seen a colored man talk like that. He goes, excuse me? He goes, oh.
He said that straight up. He never saw a colored man talk like that.
In a corporate environment. He goes, oh boy. I sit back, I open up a bag of popcorn. I'm gonna enjoy this fucking review. He goes, first of all, I'm a man like you are. We bleed the same, we sweat the same. You're gonna work as much as I do. I will never ask anybody that. And by the way, he comes up to him close and he goes, Nick, buddy, I'm Mingo. I'm your new chef temporarily. I laughed my ass off when he said that because he wasn't wearing a shirt that says Chef XYZ. He just says, just wear a plain shirt with Compass Group on the side of the arm. That's all it was. Like we all wear it. He thought he was another cook. But he finds out later on, me and him became really good friends, obviously. And he goes to me, like, what's his deal? He goes, like, I'm not getting involved. He goes, Pete. He goes, nope. Can't bribe me. Pack of cigarettes. He goes to me, which I was smoking, like, oh, yeah, why not? And like, now we're talking. And he goes, what is it? He goes, like, both his parents are Italian, Sicilian, off the boat. He was raised a very racist family. Oh, now explains it. He goes to me. The same week, we got several complaints about a tall gentleman yelling at our employees. Hey, you're a tall bull guy, Terrence. He goes, shut up, Pete. He goes, so we know it was bogus complaints. Didn't go anywhere. It makes me think of how the code switches so fast when the foot on the other side. You go throw someone under the bus because you don't like where they're from. Fuck off. He didn't like me because I was Greek. He didn't like his own fucking nephew, bro. Because he wasn't 100% Italian.
Right.
That's kind of bullshit.
Yeah. Well, speak to your own experience, because I can speak from certainly, like I said, an African-American experience. And again, Black Supremacy 101. You know, yes, he's talked about, being in the elevator and the grit purse, while on the same administration level, certain things we have to go through. But talk about this from the standpoint of you in the Greek culture. Because again, you grew up certainly in Greece for a time and American. So you're Greek American as well as, certainly you spent some time in Greece. And is there, from a Greek cultural perspective, is there a code switch that you've seen that, when you're around certain in Greek spaces that you find yourself a little bit different? Because, and again, the way both of us grow up, we kind of outliers it. One thing we have in common, we're both nerds. We grew up kind of nerdy. So So again, so we were always going to be outliers to a certain extent, even amongst our own people.
Absolutely.
And so talk about, from that perspective, the code switching that you might have had to have done within the Greek community, not so much in the outside community or other ethnic white communities or whatever it is. Talk about that and the challenges there that you've seen, or if you had to kind of switch up, do you become essentially more Greek when you're around certain people, or have people called you out saying you act like a white guy or something like that because you're not, because again, how you were raised, how you were brought up, or what have you. So speak to that.
There are phases in this. So let's start with my youth. Phase when I grew up in Greece, I was called the American. At the time, I didn't know that was offensive, by the way. Because American, when people call you American, we're thinking of the gangsters, or the criminals, the low lives, pretty much, right? So my grandma always feared when people called me that. Oh my God, somebody's gonna do something to me, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody called me that, and I thought it was a nickname, but it wasn't. When I grew up, and I went back to Greece for vacation, I was in my 20s. He goes, "Hey, American, like you say that to me, I'm gonna punch your goddamn fucking teeth out." He goes, "Well, you guys are nickname?" Like, no, fuck you. I went to him. You know that's offensive. You're a disrespectful little piece of shit. And they dropped their mouth to the floor. Like, I thought I had to fucking, use a crane to get their mouth back up because they didn't expect me to call them out after all these years.
Mm-hmm.
Then let's time jumped a little bit. In high school in the States, I dressed differently. I was wearing baggy pants. I didn't have any earrings at the time. I had my hair similar to I have it now. Obviously, I had no facial hair. Oh, he's a fruit cup. He's a fruitcake. He's gay. He's the F word. All this stuff. Yeah, when I learned, I didn't know. I was still getting accustomed with the language again. I wasn't sure what that was meant. So I did what any kid would do. Ask his mom. Ask mom. And she goes, "Oh, no, you don't say those words." So I started talking to her best friends. So I'm like, "Yo, dude, I would clobber the shit out of them, knock him out." Okay, I'm a kid. When you hear your mom's best friend's son telling you, knock him out, you're going to believe it. And you kind of look up to him at this point because he's like the cool kid in school. And remember the first time somebody called me that, I was this close to him when he called it. I go, I can't punch him. I can't kick him, but I can headbutt him. Wah-bah! Straight down the nose of the bridge. Busted him right open.
Mm-hmm.
Never got disrespected again after that point.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom pretty much ripped the teacher the new one. The principal says, "You're not
suspended." But again, this kid, this is a Greek kid, or was this an American?
White Italian kid.
White Italian kid, okay.
Yeah. So calling me all these racist terms. Like, again, not happening. Mm-hmm. Now, let's fast forward to recent when I had my long hair. Remember when I had my long hair, right, Paul?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You judge you were my locks. You were right, judge of my locks.
Your mullet.
It wasn't a mullet. Shut up. It was a man bun. First question people used to ask me: how much time did you do? Time? What the fuck are you talking about? Oh, you've been out for a while. Okay. What MC you're involved with? MC. I'm not in a motorcycle club. Wait a minute. You think I did time? You son of a bitch. I'm thinking to myself. I realized what they were talking about after a minute. And it kind of didn't communicate. Oh, because I'm a Greek man in church with a long beard, long hair, and tattoos. You think I did fucking time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. So let's put it this way. I'm glad Father Costino didn't find out what I said to the person, but probably he would give me a long lecture. Mm-hmm. But let's say outside the church when we left, we walked down the street because he parked next to me. He's trying to apologize, he's trying to be cool with me, and he got his ass ripped apart.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have money, pretty much. It gives you the fucking right to look down on me. Get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
So basically, what I'm hearing from you, and your experience might be different than mine, and it could also be based on the spaces which you operate in, which I think part of
Of course.
the question that we're raising tonight. And I think again, Black supremacy raised the question here: what is the foundational standard perspective to where a coach should even have to be created for? Dave Chappelle said it best: the brittle, spirited. From what I'm hearing from you is it's like you didn't have. I don't think you've ever had to be in a situation where you've had to quote unquote code switch. It's always like you've always been who you are. People have either accepted who you were or not. If they didn't accept who you were, you would deal with it, confront them on it, sometimes violently when they came at you at certain ways. But it seemed like you've never been in a situation where you've had to change your language. For example, I know you're pretty loose with the language.
I'm
never been in a
blunt.
situation where you. What's that?
I'm pretty blunt.
Yeah, kind of throughout. So again, code switching seems to be something that you have not have had to do in the jobs that you've had, in the cultures you've been in, even in the Greek culture, when even the Greeks have come at you in certain ways. You've always pushed up against it, and you've been your authentic self. Now, again, but at the same time, I think when you talk about codes, I think you're also talking about to Black supremacy's point, like a way of behaving that a group adopts. And I don't see that being something. In your case, you're just being you, which is, I think, is different than code switching.
Correct.
You know, I think that when you talk about a population, like I said, the African Americans, I think I said a lot of us, we've been brought up to code switch in certain things. You know, we've had class, we've had people taught, we've had OGs teach us if you're going to be in certain places, how you speak to people, yes sir, no sir, and it goes beyond respect. It goes to, again, how you dress. It goes to, again, how you deal with conflict. There's been there's been something that has been directed, even to the point of in interactions with police. We talk about how Black boys at some point in time have gotten to talk from their father or from someone. When you meet a police officer, both hands on the wheel, how you speak to someone, no sudden moves or whatnot. Now, again, I don't know if every ethnicity has the same conversation, but certainly
my parents never had that conversation.
Right.
But it actually has happened to me.
Right. But I'm saying, but if you grow up in an African-American household,
you probably would.
More than likely, you're going to have somebody, if it's not your dad, somebody's going to be having that conversation with you in terms of how do you conduct yourself in situations. Because again, a lot of times we find ourselves subjected to situations that a lot of people do not find themselves into. And so even going all the way back, I mean, just from a sports point of view, I mean, baseball, Jackie Robinson was the first African-American to play in Major League Baseball. Now, the thing is, he wasn't the best baseball player chosen. He was chosen in part, yes, he had great ability. He was an MVP, I believe in 1951, if I recall, MVP of the league. So he certainly had the ability to play, certainly at the major league level, and brought a style to the game that prior to was not seen. But when you talk about guys like Josh Gibson and whatnot, there's a lot of guys who have certainly been better, but he was chosen because of his temperament or his ability, if not to code switch, but again, to how to manage situations. But again, his sacrifice, if you will, led to where you could have other individuals like a Muhammad Ali, who was unabashedly who he was. It doesn't matter what situation it was in, he was going to be his authentic self. Now, again, people could argue, well, it's a different sport. You're talking about the team sport of baseball, where, again, you have to fit inside a culture, versus boxing, where you're essentially an individual. But nevertheless, you've had voices, you know, and there have been others. Go all the way back, Jack Johnson. Again, in individual sports, there's certainly been outliers. But in terms of those who've had to integrate into team sports, especially if you don't want to play in the Negro leagues, you want to go into the major leagues and whatnot, there's always been a certain level of conformity that, again, guys prior to what players have now have had to sacrifice for that. So again, I think as a culture, as a people, as a history, we've been taught in certain ways where other ethnic groups, not the Italians or the Greeks or certainly not the English or the whatever, have had to been said. So I think it's more for us, it's much more of an intimate conversation.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah, but like I said, but you've always been yourself. But I'm wondering if you had to go into, or here's a question, and some people, again, for those who want to be unashamedly themselves, which I'm not against. If you want to be your authentic self, I'm not saying there's a way you should act in all circumstances. If you want to be yourself, whatever it is, you want tattoos, you want to speak a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way, or what have you, I wouldn't dissuade, because for me, it's all about outcomes. And corporate space or some of these spaces may not be there for you. And if someone makes the decision to say, "Look, this isn't for me. I want to form my own. I want to form my own identity, or be in a position, a space where I can be myself, and if I can still thrive there, then I'm not stopping you." But I wonder if you had to essentially button up, would you do it?
Button up for a job, you mean?
Job or whatever space that you needed to get into to get an outcome that you wanted, that basically required you to be or to act or to do in a ways that you didn't think was your authentic self. Because one thing I said, I am not going to be here talking about, okay, well, you need to act in certain ways, but at the same time, you cannot expect certain outcomes.
Put professional Pete online. Pete, you guys get is the Pete. I hang out with my friends. I talk with people, whatever. What professional Pete needs to kick in, he's a whole different person. Meaning, like, oh, I got to watch my mouth, speak proper, shake hands, no fist pumping, none of that stuff, to get the outcome I need to come. Sometimes you have to play devil's advocate. Unfortunately, as much as we hate it. But that is a corporate world we can live in, unfortunately. Be honest, Paul. How many times you had to put your tie up and do what you had to do?
Well, honestly, we were, like I said, coming up, and again, this is a brotherhood here. We set standards above everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in terms of dress, a lot of the guys I was in college with, they were members of like the Nation of Islam, for example. And so again, there was a very strict standard in terms of how you talked. And again, it wasn't like, we all went to the Nation, most of us didn't. I'm just saying some of the leadership at the time was that, we actually, we had Farrakhan on Louis Farrakhan on campus. We brought him to Rutgers and whatnot. So again, we were very much influenced by that. But again, how a man dressed, suits. When we had functions, we wore suits. How to dress, the proper combinations. We were there. I got actually, I wouldn't say criticized, but people noticed that I outdressed everybody in every job that I've ever been in. So when I started my career, especially going to Intel, I went to work with the shirt and tie. Everybody else in the company wear jeans and T-shirts or sweatshirts or something like that. I'm the one who dressed in shoes, slacks, a button shirt, and a necktie. And I did that every day. And again, I was influenced by people even before college. I talked about this the other day. I had a teacher. His name was Mr. Bailey in high school. He was an English teacher. And he came to work every day like Coach Carter. He came to work in a 3-piece suit, had the watch that came out of the lapel pocket, wingtip shoes, talked like Morgan Freeman, just with a more deeper baritone voice, 6'6". And he set a standard for us in terms of, okay, this is, again, how a black man should carry himself when you're in certain situations. Yeah, when we got to work, because he also worked the summer program with us, yeah, he'd be in his jeans and sneakers and stuff because we're doing work. We're, physical labor and stuff. So totally understand that. But you were always told to dress up a notch above everybody else. And then once I got into my career and, just different avenues in, you always told you dress up above the standard. So in my latter years, I got compliments a lot of times. It's like, oh, Paul, he comes to work so fine dressed and whatnot. I wouldn't wear suits anymore or neckties, but I was very coordinated. Again, slacks, shoes. If it was a casual Friday, even the way I dressed was, always a little bit more than the crowd was. Again, how I speak is how I speak. Now, you're not going to see, and anybody who knows me, this is generally how I speak, period. If I'm around the quote unquote, the brothers who are like talking the street stuff, you may hear a little bit more, but not a whole lot more. But nevertheless, I understand it. I understand what's being said. I do not swear ever. So again, I could be in a room full of guys, or even on this platform where guys are swearing left and right. I just don't swear. That's just not I don't have that in my vernacular. But again, I understand it. I'm not necessarily put off when guys do it, but I'm not going to necessarily code switch in that situation because that's not part of who I am. So in a lot of ways, I am sort of like you in that I live authentically because this is who I was trained and raised to be.
Just a different way.
Just in a different way.
Even like this, Paul, I don't own too many suits or dress button downs, but when I do dress, I actually like dressing up, believe it or not. I just don't. I'm usually in a chef coat. I'm usually in chef pants and in chef shoes because that's my line of work. I'm 12, 15 hours a day. So I don't usually get a chance to say, hey, I dress up now. If me and you were going to some event, let's say it was like, I don't know, the Spartan Gathering, whatever. I'm just going to name it like, or the VMU and the Spartan get together, whatever. All of us coming in, like we have to, be, fine ties and whatever. I impress sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I do enjoy it. I don't do it often, but I do enjoy it when I do it. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and it makes, and honestly, like I said, it's truly something I enjoy doing. So, like I said, I could go to work right now, dress a lot more quote unquote sloppy because I look around me and whatnot, especially the guys. Guys don't care. It's like there is.
You wear sneakers or your suit, right?
No, I don't. And that's like I said, that for me, I'm sorry. I can't, I haven't. We were in the mall yesterday. My wife was looking forward because we're going to a wedding next weekend. And so I went to we went into a store because, it's like prom season. So they had all the mannequins with the suits and everything. And again, they had a couple mannequins with the tuxedo and the sneakers. I'm not there yet. I just can't. I looked at them. I said, no. I pointed at it. I said, no. Because I couldn't, because again, I like shoes. I think a good pair. Now, again, I'm not a fan of patent leather shoes because those things are very uncomfortable. I would never wear, you rarely sell them. I'm wearing a tuxedo for this wedding because they asked if you can wear a tuxedo, wear a tuxedo. I have one. I haven't worn it in a while. So I'm going to be rocking a tuxedo next weekend at this wedding. I will not be wearing patent leather shoes. I've never worn a pair that's been comfortable. Some sliders or something I may put on or whatever. But I'm not wearing Jordans. I'm just not there yet as far as that uniform.
Get back on the same level with me for a second. The only pair of shoes that I actually have are leather. They're Italian leather, actually, that are most comfortable goddamn shoe ever I put on my feet. And it is worth the money, Paul. I'll be honest with you. It's worth dropping $300 on these goddamn shoes. Or Gucci's for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I know you said, "Oh man, you're showing off now." No, I'm not showing off. I just want to be comfortable. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Like my Ferraganos, I hated those goddamn things. I got rid of them as soon as I could. Like the Gucci's are the most comfortable dress leather shoe I ever had. It doesn't feel like I'm wearing a shoe. I feel like I'm wearing flip flops or socks or whatever you want to call it. I can be in them in hours and I'm comfortable. I don't know about you, bro, but most of the dress shoes I wear, like I cannot wait to get them off my fucking feet.
Some I had to stop wearing. Like I know, again, I bought a couple for the event. So again, I understand. In fact, one of these days I'm going to get me a custom pair made. Like, guy, he actually puts a foot in the cast. He kind of makes it so it's like really.
I'm telling you, bro.
They say if you invest in one of those, you'll never have to buy another pair of shoes. The only thing you got to do is maintenance on them. But again, a lot of those. How many of those old school shoemakers and shoe shops are left? You don't have too many of those OGs left anymore.
Zero.
But certainly. So I get it. Comfort over function. I certainly get it. And for certain people, look, if you got orthotic problems or where you need to work orthotics and you can't get into those shoes, I get it. Where you got to wear what's comfortable. I'm just saying, just from a style point of view and aesthetic, I like dress shoes with a suit, especially a tuxedo. But again, I understand that's being promoted as a standard right now. But again, I don't have anything against it. I'm just saying, it's just for me, it's just not a it's just not a thing. But yeah, but to black supremacy's point, yeah, not seeming to have to coach again. Part of it's who I am, but at the same time, I would probably have to say maybe I was trained to code switch though. And it's almost like anything else. It's like exercise. Like I do it in such a way where it's not noticeable. Or it's imperceptible because again, this is kind of how I am, all the time, and again, ask my family, ask my wife, does he ever be in a situation where he's totally a different person? And that's why, again, even in my social media space and whatnot, I use my handle. Like I'm very easy to find. I don't have a different persona in any of my social media platforms. I live a pretty transparent. I wear have a pretty transparent life. And so, but again, but for some of us, I'm talking about guys who grew up, if you're Gen X and you grew up, like I said, you came of age in the 80s, in the 90s, there was essentially a code that you were brought up with in terms of how to operate in the United States. Now, your intentions could be totally different. Again, if you're talking about black advancement, you're talking about us getting and eventually maybe leaving corporate at some point, forming our own stuff and whatnot. But again, we knew, again, what the game was. A lot of those brothers went in law enforcement. A lot of those guys went into law. A lot of those guys went into corporate. And we were able to fashion, but at the same time, we would always connect. And we would be in spaces where we could be, quote unquote, our authentic selves. But we only had a couple guys who were like, and sometimes we try to check, like I said, going back to that Nation of Islam standard, we would have meetings. And one of the things that we had, at least in my class, this was again in college, we had a standard. You couldn't swear in meetings. You just couldn't. It was like you would get you'd be disciplined if you swore in a meeting. Because again, we wanted. It is not to say that we didn't understand the background that you came from or what you meant behind the word. With us, for example, you couldn't say the N-word, and this is before all this stuff with white rappers are saying it, or this person white people use the N-word or whatnot. Even then, we were saying you can't say. Nah, you're not saying even the A, the ending in the A. Not the ER. And we made a difference between the ER and the A, but even the A, we were like, here, now we need to put that down. It's not to say that we don't understand why you're using it or that you even mean it to us affectionately. Yo, what's up, we understood that what you meant by it. But again, we were very intentional about the words that you use and being able to draw on them. Because sometimes I see people who are very lazy with language. There's 250,000 words in the English language. And yet I hear people all the time where it's like half of their words, 50% of their words are 7 that you can't say over FCC airwaves. And so I've always said that, again, grow your vocabulary a little bit or learn how to express yourself in different ways so that when you're in different settings, you could do so. And that was not just me, but that's how we all came up. We were very intentional about that. And it didn't matter. Like I said, we had Nation of Islam leadership, we had Christian leadership, we had different kind of leadership. But again, this idea of creating a black standard. Now, some people may criticize that and say, well, really, it's a white standard or it's a white capitulation standard. People could push back and say that that's what that was. But we felt that as long as we were going to be control of the narrative, we were not going to let people define who we were. We were going to take control over that. And so in later years, when we started, like I would go back to alumni events and I would hear that the language changed. And that was kind of telling to me that things were, the new guys were coming up, were certainly not of the generation that I came from. Because then it was almost like these guys are totally unfiltered. And I'm saying how you guys even, again, where you function is where you function. But you're going to have to do a whole lot more intentional code switching, especially if you can't control your tongue in terms of the things that you would say in certain settings. Guys would refer to women as B words. We know you couldn't call a black woman a B word with us. I don't care how you meant it.
The way I grew up, if you call her that, it means you're getting your ass whooped.
Yeah, but I mean, for especially because again, you start to hear, especially in the rap music and whatnot. Again, bees and hoes. We were like, no, we don't say that. We don't refer to our women that way. But yet again, unfortunately, today it's like what we said. Maybe it fell on deaf ears, or again, the influence of rap or hip hop culture, whatever. It kind of took over, and people just kind of left it. But no, a lot of that language is just not. And especially, and yeah, I do take it kind of personal because I'm married to a black woman and I have 3 black daughters. And so, yeah, for a lot of guys, especially if
tell me. You're actually married to a black woman? We don't know that.
A chocolate sister on top of that. She's not just black, she's chocolate, dark chocolate. But that being said, still, it's like, nah, you're not saying that around me. I don't care. And again, with my daughters, with their friends and whatnot, they know. There's certain words you can't use around my father. And you want to call with that stuff, whatever. Nah, it's so they know that even so for the guys who come over here, they know that they have to code switch to a degree if they want to not be looked at me unfavorably.
So here's my issue now. I know I'm out of line to say this, but I'm going to say it. I don't care. And you always respect how I feel about things. When it comes to some words you don't fucking use. You know which word I'm saying? I'm not going to say it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to even bring the letter out. We know where that word founded. Now we're using that slang. Everybody's calling each other that. Let me tell you something. Not you, Paul, Mr. Tony in general. You're looking like an idiot when you use that word. Mm-hmm. My group is not anybody in my group knows how to use that. On my side of the channel, a couple of my guys have used it by accident, and they got scolded every single time. Am I right, Paul, or wrong?
Yeah. Banned from the channel. Can't bring him up anymore.
Simple. He's been excommunicated. Tony works out. Got a little fun there. But anyway, we do not accept that language. We as men should keep ourselves in a higher level. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. So you see the other punk ass bitch saying this. Why is that okay? Mm-hmm. Literally, I had a kid at my job the other day. He goes, and this one you might get a little upset, David. Why do I keep calling you David today?
Why do you call me David? I am not David. I'm Paul. Love our guy, David.
So we're having a meeting, and the kid goes, "Man, I've been fucked ever since I came out of my mom's womb. I'm black." And we all looked at him like, "You literally just said that in a professional meeting." And one of my managers, ex-black, he goes, "If you think that, do me a favor, just hand me your uniform now and get the fuck out of my kitchen." I go, "Well, you did me a favor," and I'm opening my big fucking mouth this time. But my point is trying to get to, why lower yourself? Have some goddamn respect for yourself.
Well, again, I understand the question, but again, everything is about environment. Like I said, where I came, where I got my grounding, again, that 4 years, Coming out of high school, I was kind of in a mostly white suburb. And I kind of talk like, well, I kind of said like, yo, dude, bro, I kind of had that kind of I had no sense of black history or culture or what have you.
I talk like that.
I had to be taught I was in an environment again, and I remember I was called Oreo growing up because again, I went to a school that was mostly white. Yes, there was a few black kids and whatnot, but again, because I was raised, my mom, she was also big on speech. She spoke a certain way. She didn't use cursing or swearing. My dad, now he's another story. I didn't live with my dad until 13. So my mom brought me up with a certain way of speaking. My schooling, like I said, my high school teacher, a lot of people brought me up. So I was called that. Oreo. I wasn't authentic. I wasn't, so again, I had to deal with it on that side. But again, when I got into college, again, there was a culture, there was an environment, there was an organization, there was a structure that I essentially got indoctrinated into that had me thinking and moving in different ways, moving with a certain purpose and a tenor. So again, it's the same for these guys who are coming from these environments. Why they talk like that is probably because that's how their parents talk. How everybody around them speaks. The only time it might be different is the person in the school, the teachers that they may be talking to. But again, as far as who you spend most of your time with, it's going to have an effect on the language that you use. So again, I'm in a way, so I can understand. Now again, I still say it's probably not right, or it's not going to be effective or useful in the environment that he's trying to operate in. But I can certainly understand. You say, well, why lower yourself? For a lot of the folks, this is all they know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's across all communities. I was called white speaking Spanish. I took over 6+ years of Spanish in high school and college. Back in college, Spanish was an elective. And it got to a point, and I also worked from high school to my sophomore year in college. I worked in a McDonald's in an area that was predominantly Hispanic. Most of the crew in the restaurant were Hispanic or Latino, or whatever you want to call it. Again, Latino, Latinx, however you want to call that. Spanish-speaking people. But even then, people would talk about my Spanish was white because all my Spanish is the Spanish that came from the books. Again, 4 years in high school, 2 years in college, and I got fairly fluent in it where I could speak it, but they always said, you sound white. Because again, if you talk about Mexican Spanish, Dominican Spanish, Cuban Spanish, Puerto Rican Spanish, the dialects are so different. Yeah, you got to throw some F-bombs in there, some slang, some curses, some whatever, some lingo in there that I did not know, because again, it's not like I lived in the culture that much. But when they heard me speak, they said, you sound like, I know one guy, I had to kind of dust my Spanish off and speak to a guy. He said, you sound like a Spanish Obama. Because again,
no, he did not say that to you.
Yeah, he was Spanish. He knew very little English. He said, you're like Obama. I mean, even when I'm speaking to him in Spanish, because my Spanish was from the book. It wasn't from the street. It wasn't from the culture. So again, I've always lived in that space. But I think one thing for sure, I think I became very comfortable with it though. Like, this is who I am. So again, I'm very much like you, going back to the earlier point. This is who I am. You can either like it or you can love it, but I'm not to it. So to a degree, I'm not switching up. I like who I am, because again, to be yourself in any environment, to have people criticize you for either being too black or too white or too whatever it is, but you know who you're comfortable in your own skin and who you are. And those who go rock with it, go rock with it. Those who are not going to rock with it, they're not. But I'm good with that. And I would say for anybody who's wrestling with or struggling with that, shout out to again, Scarlet Segment is in the building tonight. Also, my man, CJ Wilkins in the building tonight. You know, again, very pro. He said he's very pro code switching, and again, certainly has made him tens of thousands in promotion raises over the years. Yeah, I mean, some people use it strategically. But I don't think that, anybody, again, if that's not something you can do, then stop doing it. But again, be ready to live with the consequence of your actions. Yeah, there might be certain rooms that you may not get into. But if you want to get into certain rooms, then yeah, learn again that culture. And if you want to look at that as switching, then again, you can look at that as negative or positive, but again, it's all about outcomes. And I think you should always move with a certain purpose and intent. What is the outcome that I'm looking to get from this? It can be very basic. I need to take care of myself. I need to take care of my family and those who depend on me. And so if I got to be this way, then fine, so be it. But at the same time, if it's a part of who you are, then be that also. But I think the one thing I've learned over the years is like I've embraced my nerddom. So I'm a blurred in my community, a black nerd in my community. So I'm a blurred, but I'm pretty muscular. I'm pretty built. I'm not built like a typical nerd. I've embraced my baldness. So again, I'm proud to be the president of the 7B network. I've just over the years, I don't think about it. It's just basically, I think I'm more my authentic self today than I ever was in my life. And it gets to the point where you stop caring about that. And again, I'm not doing that in an offensive way. I'm just saying I'm going to be my authentic self. I'm going to put myself out there. Hello, my name is Mr. Bennett. What is your name or whatever? I'm going to treat you like a human being. And we're gonna have a conversation. I do my best to try to understand all perspectives. I try my best to understand history and culture and why people move the way they move. And the one thing that I find out more so than anything is that at the core of humanity, a lot of people want the same things. How they go about it, how they express it, may be different. But there's a lot of gray area. Hence the title of our show. There's one of the reasons why we put the show together. Is that we want to explore these different things, find the commonalities between the two. So again, me and Peter, we come from as different a background as you can think of. And we act and move very differently. But as we just kind of surmise, we're the same. He doesn't care. And neither do I. But we're like Crockett and Tubbs from Miami Vice. I mean, we're totally different people, but we're able to rock this thing out. And so, I am not, to CJ's point, I'm certainly not opposed to using it. Use it for your benefit and for the benefit of those who are around you. I think, like I said, as far as Black American culture, because think about it, we're the only, out of the Africans, I would say, in this hemisphere, we're the only ones who essentially stayed a minority in the land of our oppressors. I mean, think about that. When you talk about like the revolutions that happened, the revolutions in Haiti, the revolutions in the Caribbean, the revolutions in African states in the 60s, all those states went independent and whatnot, throwing out the colonial powers and whatnot. We kind of stayed. And we were never going to be an ethnic majority, regardless of our numbers. And now Latinos have passed us in terms of population and in terms of influence and things in the country. So that makes us different than other Black people, certainly in this hemisphere. We were always going to be a minority. So I think for us, again, how we went about doing things, especially in those days when it was like, it could be lethal. Yeah, it may affect us more than it may affect other populations. And now what I'm saying is certainly in certain areas, especially now you have where I'm at, Asian Indian populations are very big, especially in New Jersey. A lot of places like Edison, go to Edison, New Jersey, was my man Anton, which he was in here tonight. But go to Edison, New Jersey. I mean, it's basically dominated by Asian Indians. Or go to New York, go to like Brighton Beach and in New York City, dominated by Russians. Anywhere where there's a dominant culture, that culture tends to take over. And then people find out that, you know what, I don't have to code switch. Go to Miami, go to certain places where there's large populations of people. It gets to a point where you can be more of your ethnic or authentic self. When I was in college, all the black people there, like I said, I went to a PWI. So there was a standard. We were black men. Didn't matter if you came from Africa, came from the Caribbean, came from America. We identified ourselves as black men.
Mm-hmm.
There was only 3 black student, 4, actually 5. I would say this: 5 categories of black student organization. When I was in college, you had the Divine Nines, your Kappas, your Alphas, your AKAs. You know, you had that group of people, your fraternities and sororities. You had 100 Black Men, which I was a member of. You had African Student Congress. You had Haitian Association of Rutgers, and you had WISO, West Indian Student Organization. But all of us kind of worked on spoke the same language, so to speak. Now everybody's diversified now. And I noticed this when my daughters went to school, because they found themselves in situations where they had more in common with the white American students than oftentimes those of African descent, the Nigerian American students. Again, when they were in common places, they were kind of on code. Yeah, we need to be kind of black in this space. You get into their spaces, they let you know right away that you're not one of them. And now it's to the point now, so you don't have to be black to succeed, certainly in the United States. You can be Nigerian, and not only you can be Nigerian, you can also be Igbo, or you can be Yoruba here, because again, the populations are such where you can be and operate and function in your community or in your space and be more of your authentic self. There's less of a need to have to code switch, because again, there's enough of you where that's not possible. But when you're in areas where you're a minority, then I think a lot of times then you may feel the need that you may have to. So again, those Africans from the 80s, when they came to these colleges, and again, they were like the only guys there. So they were like, we got to find the people who look like me. It's like, oh, those are the black guys? Okay, oh, fine. I'm going to hang out with them. Yeah, I'm black too. And now it's almost to a thing now where it's like you got certain populations like who are as dark as much darker than I am. It's like, don't call me black. So again, populations also matter in terms of your ability or desire to go to it.
Remember I told you a while back I dated an Indian woman? So that Indian woman would not hate it. She hated being dressed as an Indian woman. And when they were talking, whatever, I curious, I go, what would you be like being dressed if you don't like it? Like calling an Indian woman, like, she goes, black. But you're Indian. That didn't connect with me. So to this day, that did not connect. She's trying to be something she's not. But when she's out in public, she's acting all proper, like a typical Indian woman like you see. Behind closed doors, she's acting like, oh, she's from the hood. You see where I'm going with this?
Mm.
That makes no sense to me.
Mm.
Why be something you're not? In her case, I mean, not my case. I don't give a shit. The reason I am the way I am, I'll be very simple and blunt about it, like I'm always am. So my parents used to grow up like, don't you care what other people think about you? No. Do you care what people say behind your back? No. Do you? No. But no. I don't give a fuck. If you stop caring what every fucker out there says behind your back,
mm-hmm.
your life will be so less stressful, more happier. I never cared about anybody who says about me. If you're so important, let's say this guy named TJ, for example, let's TJ, whatever. Hey, let's say TJ's miserable, whatever. He likes talking shit about you every single day behind your back. Guess what, Paul? You're so jealous of my life. You have to talk about me when I'm not there. So why do I give a shit? Right. I have made such a good impression on your life. You cannot get my name out of your fucking mouth.
Yeah. But again, does it not go back to outcomes? Again, you're also happy with your outcomes. Correct? I mean, certainly that said outcomes about it. So again, there's always that line. Again, it doesn't matter. Like I said, we're nerds. So there's a certain way we got to operate even in our nerddom in certain places. So if one is happy, and this is what I said earlier, if in your authentic self you are getting the outcomes that you desire, then again, be your authentic self. Like I said, I would never question anybody, and I have respect for someone who knows who they are and are content with the outcomes that they're getting. Because again, in the arenas and the areas that you swim in, you're competent certainly as a chef, or whether you be a mechanic or whatever it is, in certain levels. Those things are not as required. It's really because again, you're behind the scenes. It's understanding again how to run a kitchen, how to prepare the foods. Again, you meet the requirements of that environment. But again, if the environment, if you went to a spot, let's say and is there a limit for you? Let's say someone's willing to offer you 6 figures, but the requirements of the job is no swearing. You must shave your beard, cut your hair. Like there's a certain look in the profession. You have to wear a uniform.
I wear a uniform now.
Okay, all right. So I'm just saying example. I didn't know what your situation was, but again, there's certain standards that are there. But again, there's a carrot. Like,
okay, so the question,
to what point are you willing to playing devil's advocate, sell your soul?
All right, Christian, I understand.
For the dollar,
in the corporate world, in the corporate kitchen, in the higher, like the executive chefs and corporate chefs, yeah, Christian has to go bye-bye. All right. The beard. Oh, man, that beard. Oh. Depends how big a bonus they want to give me. It depends. It really depends a lot. It has a lot of factors. I need to have that serious conversation with the person. Is this my final step kind of thing? And is the only opportunity I'm going to get? Or what is it? I got to have like a serious conversation with the DM or the director or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Not the hair. If I have to buzz the hair off, I'll buzz the hair off. I don't care about that. I've done it before. You see me doing crazy shit with my hair.
Yeah.
So that hair doesn't bother me. The cursing is on the beard. That's the one I'm gonna like. I got to push back on that one a little bit, man.
Right. But now, having said that, the cursing itself. Now, you've told me in the past, cursing is kind of part of Greek culture, right? I mean, it's
kitchen culture.
But I'm saying, but also you talk about Greek culture as well, right? I mean,
yeah.
So again, so you got a lot of layers. I mean, your mom, we all heard your mom. I'm sure your dad is kind of like that also. This is something that again you grow up with, a way of speaking, a way of doing things. So it's not just you. You didn't just say one day, screw it, I'm just gonna be this person.
I'll put it this way. Somewhere. Our nickname between me and my father is shithead as 5 years old.
He was calling you that at 5.
Yes, and I called him that as 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know. And he used to get like, don't say that. I'm like, what? It's our nickname. Every kid has a nickname for his father and a nickname for him. Kind of go back and forth. He used to get mad when I say it. I'm probably shut up. He goes, don't say that out. I'm like, but it's not big. It's our nickname, Dad. I don't see the problem. And I go grow up like, oh fuck, shit. It means it's not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because he never set me down and explained that to me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. But to that point, again, it's been put in you. It's been ingrained from a very early age.
Yeah.
So like if I made a bet with you, if I said we're gonna set up a jar, big like a mayonnaise jar
No, you need bigger than that. You probably need a water jug.
for 30 days. Every time you swear, you have to put like $1 in the swear. Or like remember, I don't know. So we're OGs. So you remember those? There was a Bugs Bunny episode. Remember, it was Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam.
Mm-hmm.
So Yosemite Sam, who was known for his swearing, I mean, obviously he didn't swear on TV, but it was basically he was supposed to get this big inheritance, but the conditions were that he couldn't swear. And Bugs Bunny was like the executor of the estate. So it's like every time you swear, it's going to cost you $500. It's going to cost you this or that or whatever. And long story short, by the time it got to the end of the skit of the storyline, he finally figured it out. I will not swear anymore. And it didn't matter what you said or what you did. He wasn't going to swear. But the problem was Bugs Bunny kind of looks in the fourth screen and says, I don't have the heart to tell him that he's got no money left because he couldn't stop swearing. So if I was to put a bet, let's say if I put $100, you get this $100 for 30 days if you don't swear.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you take Apple Pay just in case? I don't carry cash. But yeah, I'm probably going to do that.
I will pay you in Apple dollars, $100 for 30 days from now. You do not swear, or for every swear word, I take away $1, or whatever it is. Depending on the swear, I may if you say the D word, I may take away $1 or 50 cents or whatever. If you say the F word, that's $5. If you say the MF word, that's $10. And if I just start counting it down until it gets to the point to say that, so at the end of 30 days, how much money is there going to be? How much money is going to be left at the end of the 30-day period?
He's a smart ass. That's what his problem is sometimes.
So I'm just saying, but I'm saying, but again, some of those cultural norms, like the ones you have, are sometimes hard to break.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they may not be appropriate in a corporate setting, but what could there be a scenario where you be willing to give it up? There's a certain image that we want to project. There's a certain
if you bet me $100 right now for 30 days, I can't curse. Oh, I wouldn't bet. No problem.
Shout out to Lost in Translation. The bill tonight said, "Yeah, definitely going to owe me some money." But I'm just saying, some people,
shut up.
Some people either aren't willing to change, or some people can't change, and because of that, there could be potential reward that could be lost because of that. Now, again, if you're happy with that, I'm happy for you. I'm saying, look, I'm happy being where I am because I could be my authentic self. A lot of people make that choice. I've known people who've left corporate America because it just didn't vibe with their conscience or their religious views or whatever it is. I have no problem with that. It's not to say corporate is everything. We talk about this all the time. Start your own. You don't want to be a corporate chef, start your own business, start your own restaurant. Nothing wrong with that. If they don't like because you got tattoos, we've done shows before on tattoos and tattoo culture.
Mm-hmm.
If that's a part of who you are, you've gotten so many tattoos. My only thing with tattoos is that it gets to a point now you can't even cover them up anymore. Because people put them on their necks, they're on their faces. They got
what? I actually had a
and stuff, and it's like, when's it in? But again, if you can't work in a space where if that's important to you, and you're not willing to switch up and conform to whatever standards they have when it comes to tattoos or whatever, fine. But then at the same time, you can't complain if you don't get the outcomes or you don't get the opportunities that you want because, again, you weren't willing to capitulate on certain things. And again, don't go against your conscience, but at the same time, accept the consequences of your actions.
So 2 stories behind this. So I had a conversation when I first started with this company I'm with, my DM, and my current chef, because there are a lot of chefs, he has a big ass tattoo right here on his neck. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about tattoos because my DM is covered ever his arms, but they're appropriate. They're like mine. And he's a bearded guy like me and everything. We're talking. He goes, honestly, like, our president is cool with tattoos. We can go to an event, whatever. She doesn't care. But what she does care is the neck tattoos because they look like you just came out of prison. It doesn't look good for the company. So, but the corporate America thing, I have two stories I want to tell you guys. Not me personally, because two people I actually have bought their products. I have done the reviews when I did Beard. Live Bearded. He didn't agree with corporate America thing anymore. He loved having a beard, but they couldn't allow it. Back then, beards were like, ew, it's dirty. Now, beards are welcomed. So he literally, when they quit his job and his soon Thai job, Live Bearded was one of them, and he went and started his own beer company.
Yeah.
Same thing with Beer Brand. He had the same concept, same story. He couldn't deal with it anymore. And one day his wife goes to him, and he was making really good money with his career. He goes, if you're so unhappy, just quit. And we'll figure it out. And he just quit. The story's out there. Look at Beer Brand, and he says it in Live Bearded is out there in the YouTube world. And I want to hear this. Like, that's exploration. I think that's motivation for someone like me and you, Paul. Get above, the everyday norm. Do something different. And guess what? It worked out for them. Probably worked out for us too. But are you willing to take that risk? That is the question in lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for those, like I said, shout out to those guys who've taken those risks and certainly succeeded through it. But I think a lot of times people get so inspired because they see somebody on YouTube or on social media or something like that. It's like, oh, see, he can do things better than I can do it also. And so again, you can get inspiration from that, but people think they can move and operate. Even those guys, they have to submit themselves to a certain discipline. If in fact, we ever get your beer guy on, we could talk about that in terms of, again, the things that he had to personally sacrifice in order to get to where he is at his own expense or at his own inconvenience. It might have got to a point where certain things, like I said, in corporate, you weren't able to capitulate to, but you're going to have to capitulate to something, even your own self-discipline. That you can't go everywhere you want to do. You can't go to places where you want to go. You can't say things certainly you want to say, even in business. Because again, ultimately your boss is the customer. So you're either going to have a corporate boss or you're going to have a customer boss.
In my line of work, it's a little different, actually. Because I'll tell you why. I work for a facility in a nursing home, very high-end place. So my boss, this is one thing we argue always, like, well, the company's not my fucking boss. And then with them, my residents are, because they pay to the nursing home who pays me to be here. He argues about that. But his boss has looked at him like, yeah, he's actually 100% right again. Because end of the day, without these residents paying us to be here, private Medicare doesn't matter. That I don't care a shit about. That's not my business. That's HIPAA shit. I don't care a fuck about that. What I do care is make sure my residents get fed correctly and appropriately. If I have to tweak my recipe to make them happy, so be it. I don't care what corporate says. Corporate gets shoved up their fucking asses because they're not in the goddamn kitchen like I am. My DM says he's right and tells my boss he's wrong. They don't usually like that. But I spoke to a lot of other places, other facilities I worked in. Hospitals the patients are the bosses because they pay us to be there.
Right.
The residents pay us to be there, and that's
right. But the point is, again, if you're certainly you're going to be serving someone, or you're going to be held accountable by someone. So if you own the company, you have a client that you're going to need to be accountable to. If you're in a corporate space, there's a corporate hierarchy you're going to be accountable to, and there's a way that you need to operate. And so, so either way, it's going to require a certain level of discipline. You may not have just liked the discipline that was being offered by one entity, but you're going to have to go somewhere. And then companies and people complain all the time about cancel culture. Well, again, that's something that more of the times than not, you have control over. You have a right to say what you want to say, but I have a right as a consumer to put my dollars where I want to put my dollars. So for me, I'm one of those people. I don't have a problem with cancel culture. I really don't. It's a marketplace. And you may decide that, hey, from a corporate perspective or from a business perspective, this is how we need to operate to make sure that we maximize our dollars. So maybe you may want to stay away from political stuff or social, cultural stuff or whatever, and just focus on the business. But if you decide to step out and then people decide to cancel you because of that, look, I tell people all the time, the Montgomery bus boycott was cancel culture. Folks like, oh, you don't want Rosa Parks sitting up? Fine, we're going to boycott your company. So again, I think, certainly boycotts and those sort of things have been used to great effect. But again, you have control over what comes out of your mouth. You have control over how you present yourself or what have you. If there's consequences that came with that, again, always be ready for the consequences that's there. That's the only thing I can tell anybody. How you come to work, how you dress, how you speak, how you take direction, how you give direction, all of that is within your control. And if you want to consider that you have to change how you do things in order to accomplish at the end of the day, what's the end result and what are the outcomes that you want? Now, if you can get the outcomes that you want being your authentic self, whatever that means, because what I'm also saying, I think, again, my man made a point earlier about even in the tattoo culture, we talk about conformity. It's interesting now how things have almost pivoted. So you got a lot of these guys in Texas getting these face and tattoos and whatnot because the original guy who did it didn't want to conform. But now you got all these people who are now conforming.
Yeah, I think it was Jelly, wasn't it?
To us. I don't know exactly who it was, but I'm just saying. But I find it interesting that a lot of these norms, people are conforming to one way or the other. That's what I'm saying. Still, you have to ask the question: are you getting the outcomes? So again, like for example, I had a lot of peer pressure in a lot of areas. When I was in college, I had a lot of peer pressure to drink. I'm a lifetime teetotaler. I don't drink. But then I find so many people who started drinking and never stopped drinking when they were in college. Again, is that rebelling against the system? Again, I'm not criticizing drinking per se, especially drink responsibly. But I'm saying is for a lot of people who want to sort of rebel against whatever it is, do you therefore wind up then conforming to somebody else at the end of the day who may not have your best interest or the reasons that they did it? That's not even your lane. That's not even who you are. It's like when you have a lot of these guys want to act street. When you grew up in the suburbs, it's like from that movie 8 Mile. In that rap battle at the end, Eminem was like, he's not a gangster. His real name is Clarence. And Clarence lives home with both parents. And his parents have a real good marriage. But you put in this persona that, I'm of the street. So who are you then conforming to if that's not who you are? So you have to be mindful too, again, in everything that you do. Why is it that you're doing it? And is it going to be is it going to be purposeful, a purpose behind it? So again, code switch or not to, being your authentic self, all those things are simply tools. But then we have to ask ourselves, what is the outcome that you want, that you can live with, and it's going to be the benefit of you and those around you? But we're coming up towards the end of the show. Again, I hope that you guys appreciate the discussion. Black Supremacy 101. Certainly, it was a pleasure having you in the chat tonight. Please come back again. I think this is the first time I'm seeing you. My man Andre Terry is always coming up, always at the end of the show. We're going to have a lot of football to talk about on the One-on-One Sports Show. Follow me again Wednesdays, One-on-One Sports Show, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network. And so certainly, chop it up. I'm sure you have a lot to say about your world champion Philadelphia Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. But again, good to have you guys here tonight. but Malibu Most Wanted. Yeah, I mean, it's like, but you're trying to act street. Like, if again, that's not you, then don't be who you're not. So again, I think certainly as a closing, I think we need to be mindful of that. But I think that's so we're coming to last words, Peter, as we wrap up the show. Again, good combo, and thank you for bringing up the topic. And certainly I enjoyed chopping it up with you tonight.
Just be you. Don't give a shit what people say behind your back. Don't give a shit what people say in front of your face. I actually do give a shit that. Don't give a shit what says whispers and all that shit. You want to talk shit? Talk shit to their face like I do. Simple as that. That's all I got.
Yep. And last comment tonight to get my man, Eric. Yeah, he's big into craft beers, so he's been trying to get me to have a beer for forever, but it's just not me, man. It's so I never been, but he never stops. He never stops trying though. But I love him for it.
Let me ask you this question, probably fast. Would you ever try a non-alcoholic beer?
I don't know. I never had the inkling, but even the non-alcoholic, it was like 1 or 2% or something like that. I could be wrong though, but I don't know. It's just I've just never had a desire. Part of it comes from my background. I already shared with you before. My father, battled drinking, heavy drinking, and whatnot. And that was just something that again, that was just a decision that I made that I just didn't want to drink, and I never had to. I just never had the. I never had the desire to do so, and to this day, I just function better without it. But I've seen how it's affected people in different ways, and it's just not something that I do, and I'm good with that. I'm good with that. And like I said, I can go to a bar and be very comfortable there. And I'm not going to say, look, if you want to go order if my man Eric wanted to order up a draft or you want to order up a drink or whatever, I got no problem with that. I may order my Coke Zero or something, but I'm good.
No,
like I said,
I'm
comfortable. I'm comfortable in my own skin, being who I want to be. I let you be who you want to be.
Like we talked about going to cigar lounges, and I know you're not going to smoke, but you don't mind hanging out in one.
Well, that's a little different because again, I got to be mindful of secondhand smoke or whatnot. So again, if my health is going to be impacted by that, then I may go against. So my only thing with the bar is more so about the secondhand smoke aspect of it. Assuming because I can't stand cigarette smoke, especially if we go to Atlantic City or casino or something like that. That's my only thing with it. I love the restaurants and the environment. But again, the casinos with the smoking, that bothers me. So again, I'm not going to put myself in a space where I'm going to be uncomfortable. But drinking, I mean, I don't see that as something that affects me personally. And again, if it gets to a situation, yeah, I'll be a designated driver if I need to be. But I'm not going to be preaching to you all night about, oh man, you shouldn't be drinking that. I mean, I don't do that. But yeah, but again, be in the places where you're comfortable. Be in places where again you could be your authentic self. I think people would, all be better off. But again, thanks for the conversation tonight. Again, Black Man Supremacy. Again, pleasure having you on, and you're always welcome back. And again, keep in mind that in fact, we're due for a show soon, maybe in a couple of weeks. We're due once a month, or at least we shoot for once a month. We have a call-in show.
Actually, next week is one.
Next week, there we go. So
yes.
Next week's call-in show. And so again, any these topics that we've talked about on the show, go back and look at our playlist. Any topics that we talked about that you want to chop it up with us, we typically don't have call-ins during the show. One, because it keeps the show time short. We really try to adhere to a 2-hour strict time limit. We got a lot of things to do. So again, but we do have a show where we invite people to come up. So again, you're welcome to certainly join us on our call-in show, and we'll have an opportunity to chop it up and certainly get some of your feedback, certainly on the shows that you've heard so far. But with that, for all of you, again, enjoy the rest of your holiday. A lot of you guys are doing your grilling or certainly honoring those who've lost. Again, shout out to those who've given their lives in service, and certainly enjoy the rest of your week. So for everybody out there, take care. God bless, and we'll see you next time.